Hello, Jim, and hello, Gary. Welcome to the show.
Hi,
Hello.
David. Good
Hello.
to be here.
I'm absolutely honoured to have you both on. I've had you both separately on before, but to have you both on together is an absolute miracle in my mind, and I'm really pleased to welcome you on.
Thanks.
I think, Gary, you've been coming up with some results of the binary code, and
Yeah.
I know you blew me away when we did the show previously, and I would think, Jim, are you blown away by Gary's results as well?
Yeah, I find them fascinating. I mean, I got a different perspective on it. I was there, okay, so this to authenticate the code, say, did it happen out there at that time? Yeah, of course it did. I was there, and but his findings, that is what I find unbelievable. Okay, because it's just it blows me away, actually.
Yeah.
I think
I
the
was
thing
going to
is,
say.
oh, sorry, go on,
Go on.
Gary. Go on. Yeah, all I was going to say to Jim was the mathematics of it all. I mean, do you actually? I mean, I don't understand the mathematics. What Gary, when Gary, it's just that's what I'm saying. When he blew me away, I couldn't get my head around most of it. Can you?
Yeah.
Do you understand
It
the
is.
mathematics,
It
Jim?
is.
Now,
Yeah. Go on.
Well, I do now because of Gary sent me a presentation that it was in plain English and down to my reading grade level and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I could understand
No,
it,
Yeah.
And once he did that, I went, oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've read through it quite a bit. It does actually, when you start getting your head around the figures, once you read through it a couple of times. But now,
I don't doubt his findings at all. I mean,
yeah,
I'm backing Gary on it.
I'm going to say that I don't think anyone could doubt the findings. Any mathematician would see that this is like the code is legit through the mathematics. It points to things that it's trying to prove to us. And it's trying to prove, I mean, it does prove through mathematics, because you can't refute mathematics. You can't argue with 2 + 2 = 4. So it's pointing out things to us that we have to believe because the mathematics is proving it, kind of thing, So, it goes beyond belief, actually, because belief is subjective. It's not objective. I mean, we have our beliefs because of we're emotionally attached to certain things and that. But this is objective mathematics, and it's proving things. And it goes beyond any of our emotionally, driven beliefs or views.
Yeah, exactly.
Above and beyond all that.
I mean, if I could just jump in here, Jim, I know you've probably told this story hundreds of times, but I think just for the benefit of anyone that doesn't really, maybe listening to this show doesn't really know the whole story. I mean, you don't need to tell the whole story, obviously, but maybe the basics of where you were involved in touching the craft in Rendlesham Woods or Forest in 1980. And this is where this is what this show's about, the binary code. Would you mind sort of going through that just for the benefit of people that might not know too much about it?
I'll touch on it, okay, because there's a lot to it. I was a Woodbridge supervisor for security police, Air Force security police. I was in charge of security for Woodbridge Air Base. That night, I was dispatched to the East Gate by not initially, but from Central Security Control, our control center on Bentwaters. Said there was a situation out there I needed to investigate. I went out there. I met with the 2 law enforcement patrolmen. The senior patrolman was Bud Steffens, and he pointed over to the woods, and apparently there was some type of lighting coming out of the woods and Rendlesham Forest. And so my first thought, it was possible aircraft downing. So I went to the direct line, talked to by phone. I talked to Central Security Control. Got permission through Lieutenant Moran, who got permission through the wing commanding post, and eventually, Colonel Conrad, the base commander, to go off base. Set up an entry control point, did run my checklist for a possible downed aircraft if we found one, and to set it up for the response. I took 2 airmen with me, a security airman who had a radio, myself, I had a radio, and a law enforcement airman who didn't have a radio. And we responded. I went out as far as I could with the Jeep. There's Rendlesham Forest has all these berms out there. We're off road, and I went as far as I could with it. About that area, I set up the enter control point with airman, the security airman, and he had the radio, of course, and of course he knew what he was doing. So that's the 2 things that was a criteria there. The law enforcement and security are separated career fields. The law enforcement are pretty much like gate guards and responded to domestic stuff on base, like policemen and stuff. I was security, and we were responsible for the total population of the base, plus the security of the base, all its resources, priority A resources, priority B resources, C resources, the restricted areas, aircraft parking. It goes on and on and on. So as I investigated that, we got to the wood line, and there was lights coming from the woods. I couldn't see it very good, but even though I only sat maybe 10, 15 feet in, as I got closer to it, I felt a physical response around with it, feeling of electricity and stuff like that. I get to the craft. As the light dissipated, the craft was there. It was triangular in shape. I had no way of measuring it and stuff like that. So I used my walk, I took my stride, I used the things I had out there. I investigated the craft. I walked around it, the 360. I seen markings that were on the craft. And they were pictorial type markings. I then made a second go around on it. I was feeling the fabric of the craft. I went to and I felt the symbols that they felt like they were etched inside the aircraft. And when I hit the big symbol with the triangle, large triangle that was above it, it initiated what I will call a intense white bright light where I couldn't see anything else, but it wasn't light. And I'll tell you about why in a second. And during that time, I was with my hand on it. I was getting some type of vision of, ones and zeros and things like that. And I started getting my senses, and I took my hand off, and I could immediately say the forest was dark out there, except for the little lighting around the aircraft, the craft itself. And I had my night vision, so I knew that wasn't light, because night vision wouldn't take another 30 to 45 minutes to regain it. I continued my walk around, and at a certain point in time, it started generating light throughout the fabric of the craft. And then, I took a defensive position, and it lifted up to the canopy of the forest, made a momentary turn, and it was gone in the blink of an eye. And at that time, the law enforcement patrol that was with me I heard him beside me, came running up, and he took off and he started chasing it. And I chased him because of the team concept. Yeah, it was a very messed up situation there. And anyway, we get a good distance away, jumping fences, farmers' fields. I mean, we get to a spot where the law enforcement airman got tired, and he finally stopped. And when he stopped, I said, "My God, I lucked out, because I was pretty exhausted by then." And I said, "What the hell are you chasing?" And because the forest, you couldn't really see much outside of looking straight up. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he was chasing. And he points with finger over toward the coastline in the opposite direction, and I said, "What are you looking at?" So I looked down his arm at it, and using his arm for a guide, and he was pointing at what turned out to be the lighthouse over there. So that's how it came into his statement. And it was just a few seconds later, I looked up and I seen the object over Cape of Green area. It was still there, just hovering. I don't know what was hovering. It was it was stationary, and it was above the trees and not moving. And it then slowly turned again and headed out toward the coastline, and that was the end of it. And slow means it wasn't gone in the blink of an eye. Slow would be, I don't know, and it's hard to guess speed on the ground, but I would say, 300-400 miles an hour, which is pretty slow. So that was the extent of it. And then the following day, we had went out and checked out the area, ran into the other investigators that were out there from the squadron, Major Dury, Captain Verano, a few other people. Anyway, I get home, and I was told to take off, take a couple of days off. I get home, and I'm up all day. I go back and re-verify the situation out there by getting plaster casts. I get back home and I had dinner, and I tried to go to sleep at night. I couldn't sleep, and I kept seeing these ones and zeros that were flashing in my mind's eye. Every time I would close my eyes and concentrate, I could see these, and it was very disturbing. I thought I was having a mental breakdown. I thought it was trauma from the incident. I was concerned because I really can't go into the base hospital, the facility there, the clinic, and tell them I'm seeing ones and zeros, and I had a encounter with objects out in the forest. I mean, it was no good. That was a no good scenario. It would have got me probably relieved of duty, and also it probably ended my career in the Air Force. Anyway, I get up. And then I don't know what time it was, midnight, something like that. I get up, not sleeping. I made a pot of coffee because I wasn't going to sleep anyway. And I'm just sitting there and looking over the stuff from the day. I had my notebook. I was looking at that because I was looking at what I'd drawn in there and my notes and things like that. And I said, I think I write that down. And I felt compelled to, actually. And so I started writing them down, and I hadn't even finished a line or two, and it felt good. And so I continued to do that, and I wrote them all down until I couldn't write anymore or see them anymore. And when I stopped, I felt great. I felt like refreshed. And I felt like I could go to sleep, even though I had that coffee. I thought I could, and I did. And I woke up the next day, and I felt great. That is how it started.
And that was 16 pages of binary, wasn't it, Jim?
Yeah, I was forced to count it one time back in 2011. I just made numbers up, 15, 6, I don't know, whatever. I think
12.
It was 12. I just because you know what, that wasn't even important to me after what happened out there. You know what I mean?
I think an important thing that comes up sometimes. Did you actually know binary at the time?
Oh, no, I didn't even know what it was. Matter of fact, I didn't know what binary code was until 2013 when we were on a film shoot. And,
no, it was 2010.
Thank you for the dates.
Look, yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
That was Gary. Yeah.
Thank you very. Yeah. Don't let me tell anything that's not true, Gary.
No, because this is what the skeptics will do. They will, or the pseudo skeptics, I should say, will jump on things that you said when you don't really remember dates, but you need a time.
Well, it's a long time ago. Yeah.
I really don't give a shit about the details like that.
I'll bleep that out. Don't worry.
I just never have worried about details like that because they're not important to me, to be honest.
Yeah. No, it's just I want to clarify that because you do get people saying, "Oh, he must have known what binary was and everything." And I mean, and to this day now, Jim, do you understand binary now?
Well, I know it's ones and zeros are binary code, but
I mean, could you actually, if someone put down a load of ones and zeros in front of you, could you work out what it said?
No.
Oh, no. That's what I'm kind of mean.
No, I think don't there have to be a computer that figures that out?
Yeah, it's all computer language, but
yeah. No, I think some people can actually work it out by looking at it, but I believe
really.
Well, I believe there are some. I believe there are some, but I don't know. I mean, all I would know is
I don't know about everybody else, but I can't. Okay.
No. I mean, I can't either.
No, like I said, I didn't find out until 2010 on a film shoot for Ancient Aliens out in Phoenix, Arizona, and
it was October 2010.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say, Jim. See, you've just said that only a computer would be able to read that. So you being a human being, writing ones and zeros down, not knowing what it means.
Oh no! I see the whole thing is after I wrote them down after that horrible night. After I wrote them down, I thought I avoided a mental breakdown. I thought that's all I thought it was. I thought it was a mental breakdown. I didn't realize what binary was, or I didn't realize what I wrote. I don't realize that there was even conceivable possibility of anything like a message in it. That's what I'm saying. Impossible.
It's important because what Gary's come up with later on, it proves that there was no way that you could have written that down, and knowing what he was going to say in the future, and what Gary will demonstrate that later.
Well, I suppose anybody could write down ones and zeros, but for it to make any type of sense, I guess is what
there's no way he could have devised it himself. Put it that way. What comes out of the code, what emerges from the code.
My specialties have been in criminal justice. It's not in math or.
You wouldn't even have the patience, Jim. You wouldn't even have the patience to do something, like trying to hoax a code. And I just want to make a point that Jim didn't even know it was binary code when Linda Moulton Howe got involved, and she was looking at the. Was it the transcripts of the?
Yeah, she said. Yeah, Gary. She said part of the transcripts was said I could see binary code. I didn't know what the hell that was. I don't.
But you didn't even. But you didn't even know then because you hadn't looked at your hypnosis tapes. You wouldn't look at them because you tried.
No, I don't know.
Too traumatic for you.
Did you put that part in the book about how you had to do the transcribe? You transcribed
yeah. It's all in there. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, you didn't even know then because skeptics or people trying to debunk this will say that
they
must have known
about binary code. They can't debunk it. It's
impossible. They can't.
It's impossible to debunk because it happened.
Well, all the issues that they keep coming up with, it's all explained in the book anyway. And they still keep coming up with these things.
Well, I don't see how that can happen if they read the Rendlesham Enigma book. I don't even understand how that can.
They just get things wrong. They just misread things, misinterpret things. I mean, some of it is because, you're not, Jim, in the interviews you've done, you haven't been always clear. But if someone was to come up to you and ask you about the issues, you would explain it, which you did to me.
Right.
So I know that what they're doing is just coming up with the same old things that, it's their interpretation of it. But they haven't.
Well, I don't. It's their guessing or making stuff up because they don't know.
No, I know that. You have to establish a timeline like you do with any murder case. You have to establish a timeline. You have to have all the dates. As one thing, follows another. It's all in chronological order. So that's what I did with the book, which is how I wrote everything out. It all had to be in chronological order. So I remember the dates, like I remember phone numbers. I'm quite good with math because I remember numbers. So I remember the dates. You don't always, and that's when people take umbrage with you. They think, oh, he's got it wrong. Why is he saying this? Well, he should be saying that. And that's how they get things wrong.
Yeah. That stuff is not important to me. I mean, I guess, I mean, I mean, when we went through writing the drafts for the Enigma book, I don't know how many drafts, Gary. What, 8, 9? I don't know.
Maybe something.
Maybe. Yeah, and you had the evidentiary end notes in there and stuff. We went over stuff, and it wasn't because I was trying to get a story down or my account. It was using the right words to be most descriptive, I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you do, and not to be any gray area in a meaning of
I
a
love
word.
clarity. I like clarity in everything, and this is where they go wrong. They don't interview you to pick up on the points that they make, so that you can explain it to them better. What they see as discrepancies or contradictions. They need to ask you about those personally to get the explanation, the logical explanation.
I mean, contradictions. Okay. For example, here's I guess a contradiction. I mean, I didn't like it when it happened. The first interview we did, documentary I did, was in England, and it was for some show. I can't remember, Gary, the show.
Yeah.
Strange but true. And
strange but true. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's a brilliant producer, because I showed him the notebook. I said, "What about this after the meeting?" And he goes, "We already got our storyboards done." That's interesting, but that's what he says. I said, "Okay." So it's not that's not interesting. I thought he would want to see diagrams or something. He didn't. Anyway, one of the things that he made me say is on the size of the craft. He goes, "Say it's the size of a tank." I said, "I've never seen a tank." He says, "A tank? You see them on TV, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah, okay." I've never really seen one up front, though. And he goes, say it's the size of the tank so the audience will know what you're talking about. I go, "All right." And I was so naive back then. I said, "Okay, so I'm on film going, oh, it was the size of a tank." I don't know what a tank is.
Yeah, I know what they're like.
But that's disinformation there. But it's not because I wanted to.
Yeah, I know. What they show to the audience is they have to sensationalize it and get the audience to be able to understand it. So they change certain things and kind of fabricate certain things. It's like Heather, she's been on TV. She knows what it's like. She'll say something and they say, "No, we don't want you to say that. We want you to say this." So people are misinformed.
I stopped doing that, though, Gary. I stopped at a point in time. I just stopped doing that. I said, "If you don't like it," I said, "don't put me in the show. Just use somebody else. Leave me out." I just didn't care after
so what I'm concerned about is that the public are being misinformed all the time because of the sensationalism that they want to kind of portray and not the facts. And I am really, it has to be the facts for me. And the code being mathematical, God, I'm in my element. But I'm just saying, because it goes beyond all what people think, their beliefs, their views, their opinions.
Of course, but that is so amazing, Gary. They try to take the most sensational event in my entire life. Even more than my children being born. It's the most sensational event, and they tried to sensationalize it.
I don't have to.
Why would they do that? That just blows my mind. It does. There's no need to sensationalize anything with Rendlesham. Nothing.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned about I'm concerned about the binary code and the what has emerged from it, because it is difficult to understand. It is difficult to get your head around it. But once people realize what it's telling us, if they can get through the mathematic block, because they will put a wall up when they see numbers and stuff. If they can actually understand it, they will see you don't have to sensationalize this incident. The code authenticates itself, by predicting a 12-digit number that came up 38 years in the future when our physicists determined this number, working on the fine structure constant, okay? And it's something that Carl Sagan had said, if the fine structure constant ever came up in a message that we believe was from an advanced intelligence or civilization, this is something that would make us sit up and take notice. It'd be worthy of considerable attention, he said. And it's happened with a Rendlesham incident. And if people were to realize this and see how it actually does this, because it's such a clever way that it shows us the fine structure constant number, 12 digit number. It's so clever they do that, and they do it through Giza, through the the Giza Plateau and the latitude there in 1980. So if they were to actually understand this, get their head around it, understand it, they would see that you wouldn't have to sensationalize this incident, and the code proving itself mathematically proves that the incident was paranormally significant, because the code is it's like a demonstration of retrocausality, that information has been sent back to the past that has an effect on the present, which at the time was 2018 when this number came up, and will have an effect on the future. So, and that in itself is just, it's remarkable. The thing is, it could only have happened in 1980. The only way this demonstration of retrocausality could have been implemented was in 1980, not the year before, not the year after, not the years before, the years after, but on that year, in the whole timeline of human history, that is the only year they could have done it. And people aren't aware of this yet. People ain't got their head around this yet. I understand it. A few other mathematicians I know understand it. They're PhD mathematicians, a couple of them. Manu Safesadeh, who I've been working with, because his work comes up in the code. It's being pointed to by the code, but from a code that was in 1980s, pointing to work he was doing in 2018 when I first met him. Yeah. So when people get their head around this, they will know that this is true contact with an advanced intelligence that's not confined by the laws of our temporal spatial reality. I wouldn't, they could be us from the future. Some intelligence that's outside our timeline in another dimension or whatever. But in any case, the code proves itself, and it proves that the incident involving something, we can't explain, took place.
And more importantly, it proves that I wasn't having a mental breakdown.
No, yeah, it does.
Back in 1980, because I never talked about that, because I was ashamed of it. I was ashamed of the whole thing,
I'll tell you what's an important thing between, if you don't mind, Gary, there's an important thing matter here. I have heard it suggested by one or two people in the past that you two sort of got together to conjure up this whole thing to make a big yarn and story. I mean, obviously, I don't believe that. And I know many people don't believe it.
If they see the amount of...
But it has been suggested that you two got together. No. So maybe you could explain how you and Jim got together to actually...
I will.
You never knew each other at the time, did you?
No, no. I'll have to say first that all the data that's come out, those 7 coordinates, as I've said this loads of times, it could fill 3 or more books, 3 large volumes. And no, I mean, it's just crazy the amount of data that's come out. It's not something that I could ever devise. It's not something that Jim could. I mean, and Jim doesn't, is not aware of all the things that I've, researched over the years. And I feel I was being prepared to work on the code, through all this work I was doing, because it's the way I approach the code. I suppose it took someone like me who approaches it in a certain, approaches things in a certain way to decipher it, and all the information that's encapsulated in those 7 coordinates. No, it's not something that I can't even imagine anyone on this planet devising it, in the way it has, because it predicts things in the future. It predicts things that, when I actually find something in the code, it's kind of related to something that's happening in the present. This is years after years after 1980. And the other thing is that we would have to have the mapping programs, online calculators, reliable calculators and tools to be able to decipher the information that's encapsulated in the 7 coordinates. And the last information, last amount of data that was the mapping of Giza was only completed in 2018. So again, you got the 2018 year, 1980, 2018. Those years are pivotal. And as I said, a lot of the tools, programs, and mapping data that we needed to decipher the code only came out years later. So that in itself just shows you that this is time related. It's time sensitive. It's something
you know, I never knew Gary. That was the original question. I never knew Gary, and I was having dreams about 23 and a half. I mean, it was just crazy.
23.5 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, this mutual friend says, you know, I know a guy. She says, like, has done work somehow with these type of numbers. I said, okay. So that's the contact. And I don't know what year was that. It was, I don't know, Gary. What year?
2010, because that's when you first sent me an email with the 23.5 and the title.
And
because you thought it was something else as well, didn't you? You thought those figures meant something else. No,
he thought. But he told me in the email that he thought it had something to do with temperature on the planet.
Yeah.
And then I said, then I told Jim in a reply saying, no, it's the Earth's tilt angle, the obliquity angle of the Earth in respect to the ecliptic plane, 23.5 degrees. I mean, it's 23.43 now because it's slowly decreasing. But in most textbooks on the subject, it will give the generic 23.5, a round off number. But
And the other thing, when the binary came, I left Gary alone with it, and he was a skeptic, and I wanted him to.
I am. I'm still am.
Yeah, you are. That's right, you are, and that's and bless you for that, because it's in a good way. It is, and because that was it. I don't know. I left Gary alone for ages after I gave him the binary, and he thought I forgot about it or something. I don't know. And I got a hold of him. I said, "No, I don't want to influence you."
Yeah.
It's just the opposite. I don't know. Did we put that in the final version of Enigma?
Yeah, Gary? I did. I mentioned it. I'm
going to have to reread it
because I actually got a bit pissed off with you, really, because he wasn't giving me any feedback on what I was finding. First of all, he was just going, right, that's interesting. Okay. And then he said to me, then he explained that, no, I don't want to kind of influence you in any way or kind of, put you on a certain path with it. I want you to find what you find and where the chips fall. That's
right.
It.
That's right.
So, and that was what it was. He left me alone to do it.
And that's where we're at today here.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, I don't know if other people would have done it that way, but I think by Gary having nobody influence him and he was just doing his own work with it.
Yeah.
I think that was the key to him discovering his discoveries.
Yeah. Can I tell you something that I don't have any? Look, I haven't really got much interest in UFO phenomenon, to tell the truth. From what I see on Facebook, because it's all UFO this, UFO that, especially with the people that have befriended me on there, and they make me join these groups. It's just a load of misinformation. It's just disinformation, and people getting things wrong. And I used to be interested in the subject, but now I'm weary of it. But I don't believe in a lot of these, UFO cases. There's a few that I think, happened the way they say it did. But at the end of the day, I know that code has authenticated itself, and it's proof of contact. It's proof of contact with an advanced intelligence, whatever it is. And that to me is, that's the crux of the whole thing for me. All the other UFO stuff in relation, it's kind of irrelevant to me. This is what actually proves it. People won't know that until they actually get their head around what I'm, when I get books out on the findings of the code, and hopefully they will understand it. They will then see that this is something that's made me sit up and take notice, put it that way. Because I am skeptic. I am a skeptic, really. Think they've got to have the facts, and these are mathematical facts that you can't refute. So, to me, that is the jewel in the crown. Kind of dramatic, that, isn't it?
Yeah, we've come to a pause there. Nobody knows what to say now. Funny enough, I was going to ask you that actually later on. Do you believe in UFOs and things, or most of the stories. But you sort of answered that question anyway, Gary.
Yeah, I'm kind of weary of it. And
yeah, I know what you mean. I do know what you mean.
And then people claiming that they're from the ninth dimension or something, and
yeah,
you know, stating things as facts, and it's all.
Yeah, when you hear stories like that, I mean, Jim's story.
Jim's the same.
Is
quite. Yeah, I'm no different than Gary on this, you know. And the other thing that adds to all this mumbled UFO jumble stuff that's out there is all the false flag, operations are going on. You know, the stuff that's
to make us believe the UFO phenomenon is a threat. You know.
Yeah, stuff that comes out of the Pentagon. Of course, that's all false flag.
Yeah,
they got weaponization of it. That's a false flag. I mean, there's just so many false flag stuff.
It's to keep us all scared, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, or no, so you don't watch what the right hand is doing. You got the left hand flopping all over the place, and that's what they do. That don't help either. Then you have people that actually, I don't know if I want to say that like that, but there are people that have given accounts that are just plain. Fabricated or something. I got to be careful what I say.
Fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty of those out there. There's not just a case you're talking about, I don't think, but there's plenty of cases out there. Like
but it doesn't discount out of the doesn't discount the 1% that they can't explain.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Which is still a huge number, per year. Usually people just don't know what the hell they're looking at, and then they have no background of what they're looking at. And I mean, the case of there's just it's even worse nowadays with all the drones. They got drones all over the place. You can have one, Gary, or Gary can have one, or you can, David, in your backyard, and freak everybody out.
Make you look like a flying saucer.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, the other part of it is everybody's trying to make money on this, I think.
They're trying to control the narrative, aren't they, of the Rendlesham incident? They're trying to control the narrative. Like Gary Esseltine is, for instance, Burroughs, John Burroughs is trying to control the narrative now. And I'm thinking this isn't about anyone.
Absolutely.
Really, and you agree with me that the incident was about the code, because that's what proves it, because it's mathematical, so you can't really refute it. And the thing is, I get ignored. Well, I'm trying to get this across to people, and these people that so-called investigators, researchers of the RFI, they ignore me. I post something, they ignore me, and I'm thinking, well, it's in their best interest to do that, really, because they still want to. And it's like they've got no other choice, because they want to be in the position to be able to control a narrative. So they've got to carry on. And the only way they can do that is by ignoring me and the code.
I think the thing is, Gary, they can't really argue with you, can you? Because you can sort of blind them with all the facts and figures, and they can't really argue.
I've got everything to back up what I'm saying.
I know, that's what I mean.
I've got all the mathematical proof to back up what I'm saying. And I'm talking about using the most reliable tools, accurate tools available to be able to do it. And the way I see it, whoever devised the code, it's like they knew what tools I would use and when to be able to decipher each part of the code. And it's like someone looking over your shoulder from the future or outside of time and going, okay,
I don't know if you might say this right at the end, what you told me last time about you might. I'll leave you to say that. I think you know what I mean about going full circle.
Yeah. Oh, what about the?
Yeah, but maybe you were telling yourself at the end of the day.
Oh no, I know what you're saying. No, me and Jim had a discussion about it, and we kind of had a laugh, saying
the whole thing goes full circle.
Yeah, it's like the book has already come out, with this, the way the code authenticates itself in the last chapter. The Rendlesham Enigma book. But I'm going to be coming out with the other findings that I found, in the code that emerged from the code over the last, I don't know, since 2018 actually, And those books are going to be out. They're going to be published. And you would say, well, if they're published, they're in the public domain, and they will remain in the public domain so many years into the future. And then one day in the future, they find out how to break the time barrier, and they think, oh, we can send things back in time. Let's take those coordinates that are in that code that's in that book, where it encapsulates all this data, all this information, and send them back to 1980. So, so it's like, where does the loop end and where does it begin? There's kind of, you're trapped in a kind of loop here. Yeah. If you look at it that way, it's kind of mind-boggling.
It is, yeah.
So, there's lots to say about the code. There's going to be a hell of a lot of things to say about the code in the future when people get their head around it. But at the moment, I'm patient.
Are you going to try and take us through a bit of it, or not? Take the audience through a little bit of it. I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult on radio, but you can probably
off the top of my head. Yeah, there's several themes that come out of the code. That it's like it's like a sphere of information. Like one thing will confirm something, and that thing will be confirmed in turn by something else. So it all matches up mathematically. It's like a ball, like a grid of information that all kind of, one thing leads to another and another thing leads to that, and that's confirming that, and so it's all kind of self referencing, and that's the thing about it. You know that you can't really pick it apart. It all matches up, and it's all very meticulous the way it's all this data emerges. And to think that Jim just wrote down ones and zeros, which contain these coordinates that encapsulate all this information, is incredible. So what I was going to say, there's several themes that come out of the code, and one of them is to do with the Earth's axis, the tilt of the Earth, the 23.5 degree angle that keeps coming up in the code. There's the Azores, which is where they believe that Atlantis once was. There's a whole lot of conjecture about it, about the islands of the Azores being the peaks of the mountains of Atlantis. So it's pointing to the Azores in several different ways. You've got a timeline at Giza, which is the Giza diagonal, which the southeast corners of the pyramids are kind of touching. So it's like an abstract line, but that line is actually a timeline. You can measure it one way and then the other, and it's like a precessional cycle timeline. Precessional cycle is 920 years according to the ancient estimate. But this the length of the Giza diagonal is 1/6 of half a precessional cycle. So it's a timeline, and you can find dates on that timeline. And the reason why they've got a timeline there, whoever constructed Giza, they've encoded this timeline at Giza to show that there are cataclysm dates that come around, cataclysm times in the precessional cycle that come around again and again. So it's like warning us, yeah? So you've got the Earth's axis, you've got the Azores, which is Atlantis, that they believe is Atlantis. You've got the timeline at Giza, which is a precessional timeline that's showing these cataclysm dates on it. And you've got the 8100 year, haven't you, which was in the code, in the first line of the code, which was the original. It says a date of origin or whatever, and that's in the future. And that date is actually on the timeline. You can find it on the Giza diagonal timeline, 8100. So, and then there's a Svalbard seed vault. The code is pointing to the Svalbard seed vault. Svalbard, which is the Norwegian. It's where they keep all the seeds of the country's seeds, that in case there's a cataclysm, a global catastrophe, they keep all the seeds locked in that seed bank, and it's pointing to that as well. So when you look at all this together, it's like telling us that some kind of cataclysm comes around and again and again, and the timeline at Giza points back to 10,460 BC, which is 12,500 years ago. And that's when they say when the Younger Dryas catastrophe happened at the time. I know, it wasn't catastrophe. It's what Graham Hancock has been kind of alluding to, that there was a cataclysm around that time, which you could say coincides with the sinking of Atlantis. And so there's all these themes that are telling us this. And that's all aside from the way that it authenticates itself. So it authenticates itself first, and then you find all these themes that are emerging from the code telling us about cataclysm that happened in the past and will happen in the future. So, yeah, it's vast. And also at the same time, it's pointing to an area beneath the Sphinx, beneath the right forepaw of the Sphinx, which is where Manu Saves the Day's data comes into it, because he's written this book. Where is it? Got it here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. There. Under the Sphinx.
Under the Sphinx, it's called, yeah.
Now, it was Manu who contacted me first of all, because he was really kind of knocked out by some of the things that were in Robert Bauval's book that I contributed an appendix to. And he said he was impressed by the math that I'd found, in the mathematical properties of the Great Pyramid. And so I met up with him in 2018. He came down to see me, actually. He had lunch with me and Eva, and we were talking about his new discoveries and stuff. And found that the code was actually pointing to the Sphinx, to the left forepaw of the Sphinx, and a void area underneath the Sphinx, which was found through tomography scanning by Robert Schoch and Thomas de Becky in 1991. They found a void under the arm, under the forepaw. And Manu's work is about this. He says that there was a cache of records placed under there, deposited under there, which was breached. But he says there's something under the Sphinx. It's kind of like a cave or temple or some, I don't know, area, that underground chamber or something. So, and the code is pointing to that. But it not only points to the Sphinx with this heading line from the Giza coordinates found in the code, but if you take the heading line right back the other way in the opposite direction, it leads all the way to San Miguel in the Azores, which is only 290 square miles in an ocean that's 14.1 million square miles. So it's like a needle in an haystack.
Mm.
Now, I'm rambling a bit here because I'm talking about all this off the top of my head, but I've got it all documented. I've got it all written down, and I sent Jim a PowerPoint presentation of what I've just told you, and he said he understands it. He gets it now. So,
yeah, you sent it to me. Actually, I've got it here. That's what I keep looking at. I think that's the one you sent me, isn't it, Gary?
Yeah. So what the code is doing, it's uncovering. It's telling us about things that has mystified us for centuries. Especially about Giza. And the thing is, I've only concentrated on Giza. Really, I haven't really studied the other 6 sets of coordinates properly. And, I mean, you can't really study High Brazil, High Brazil, which is off the west coast of Ireland under the sea. So you can't, what can you say about that? You can only research the history of it in certain sources that have mentioned it.
I mean, anyone listening to this show and put in what Gary's talking about, this presentation that he's done, I'll actually put them on the Paranormal Dimensions page, all this lot, the whole lot, so you can actually see all Gary's presentation. That's all right, Gary, isn't it, to do that?
Yeah, I want to say also, I want to add that, the first line of the code is, the code message is exploration of humanity. And really, when you look at what emerges from the code, it's telling us about, as I said, it's uncovering secrets that we didn't know about Giza. And it will mostly, what comes out of there is from Giza, but there's the other coordinate sites that we still got to find out about. But when you look at the type that piece of text in the first line, exploration of humanity, then that's what comes out of the code. It's like this exploration of all these sites, and what they hide, especially at Giza. What's been encoded there? And then you think to yourself, well, wait a minute, why you know, when you look at Giza and what's been encoded there, and I say what's been encoded there because of that timeline, and all the mathematical properties of it, you think, so was it really the ancient Egyptians that constructed Giza, or did they come later and then they appropriated the pyramids for their different reasons? You know, like maybe they were used as tombs, but they were already built. And if so, who built the pyramids? You know, did it come from the same intelligence that sent the code from the future? You know, so.
Anyway, apart from that, Gary, you actually were going to talk. You were talking about something else that happened on the base at the time as well, weren't you? You were going to mention.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, I'll get to that. I just want to say that what I just told you, we can speculate about that information, you know, but I'm talking about the mathematical facts that lay out this information. Then you can speculate about it. I mean, we can all speculate, but you know, we might be wrong on certain things, but anyway, what I was going to say is what gets me is this lighthouse theory, why they keep peddling. Yeah. Like Ian Ridpath, he's still saying it now. He's still online talking about the lighthouse.
Is it Dr. David Clark as well, isn't it? The same one.
Yeah, they're still peddling that same old, you know, it's just a waste of time. It's been a waste of time throughout the years. They keep talking about it. So anyway, I'll read this out because I want to get the details out. I could probably tell you off the top of my head, but I think it's best that people know the details. Sorry, Jim, is there anything more you want to say?
Yeah, this is quite explosive, what Gary's going to read.
Yeah, so in the foreword, I've got to read it out. In the foreword of the book that Nick Pope had co-authored with Jim Penniston and John Burroughs under the title Encounter in Rendlesham Forest, published in 2014, Nick Pope writes, by the MOD's own admission, there was no definitive explanation for the Rendlesham Forest incident, and the case remains unexplained to this day. Right? However, when pressed to make a statement on the incident, the MOD has consistently said that the events were judged to be of no defence significance. Okay, 9 years ago that book was published. You know what Jim did with John and Nick. So, you know, time just flies, doesn't it? Anyway, Nick has mentioned that many times, by the way, but if so, then how are we to explain the testimony of USAF retired Tech Sergeant Mark E. Cartier? Yeah. During 1980, when the Rendlesham incident happened, Mark Cartier, who was then an airman first class and had been in the USAF for 2 years, was stationed at Hellenikon. That's right. I think that's how you pronounce it. Hellenikon USAF Air Base, Athens in Greece. Okay, and that was this was in 1980. Airman First Class Mark Cartier was on a 12-hour mid-shift, which started at 7 p.m. on December the 25th and extended to 7 a.m. on December 26th. The other person on the overnight shift with him was his supervisor, Tech Sergeant Terry Knight. At some time in the early morning hours of December the 26th, Jim, was when you had the encounter with the unidentified craft of unknown origin. The 2140th Communications Group Comm Center received a flash precedence classified message. Okay, Mark explains that when a flash precedence message comes in, they get both an audible alarm and strobe flashes. Right? He added that when a message of this level is received, standard operating procedures are to drop everything and process with extreme urgency. It was Mark's supervisor, Tech Sergeant Terry Knight, who was standing near the DESTE printer, who had immediately recovered the message. Mark states that he did not remember the classification, i.e. secret, confidential, etc., but did remember Tech Sergeant Knight's response and his order that was directed to Mark, in which Mark paraphrases as, "Holy shit, we've got a UFO at Bentwaters, call the base commander and get his ass down here." Mark says that Tech Sergeant Knight had the kind of unflappable personality that was impossible to rattle, that he could have a grand piano drop on a sidewalk, missing him by inches, and he would just say calmly, "That was close." So for Tech Sergeant Knight to raise his voice with such excitement and urgency is something that Mark says he will never forget. Being such a young airman, Mark said he remembered thinking, "Oh God, I have to call the base commander and tell him to get his ass down here. Do I even have that authority?" But what Mark remembers saying was, "Sir, we have a flash president's message that requires you to action immediately." And amazingly, Mark writes that the base commander arrived within seconds of Mark hanging up the phone and processing this message. So Mark goes on to say that the whole thing was surreal, as he had never seen anything prior or since about UFOs. He remembers the message having described a situation where there was an actual unidentified craft within the vicinity of the Bentwaters and Woodbridge air bases in Suffolk, England, to be of an unknown disposition or threat. And as a condition of this, all European bloc military bases were to go on alert status. Mark says that they went from DEFCON 4 to DEFCON 2, DEFCON 1 being at war, you know, and it was just one away from that. So Mark states that DEFCON 2 was a state of readiness that he had never seen. He then adds that the security police he had passed at the base gate when coming to work that morning, or that night, the night before, were wearing sidearm pistols only, but upon leaving, they had M16s, or whatever you call it.
M16.
Right, yeah, M16 rifles. Mark remembers this being a very significant event and adds that how the Air Force reacted proved to him that, quote, "the military in general treats these matters very seriously." Mark then ends with writing his name, Marquis Cartier, Tech Sergeant, USAF, retired, October 24th, 2019. That's when the statement was given. Marquis Cartier's testimony reveals that this UFO incident in the vicinity of the twin bases in Suffolk, England, was indeed considered of defence significance by the European USAF air bases. And this also means that the Rendlesham UFO incident was not a so-called military black ops operation to test the responses of USAF airmen employed at the twin bases, as some believe or will use to manipulate public opinion about the incident. Furthermore, Jim will tell you, right, that this testimony by Mark E. Cartier is peripheral confirmation that his up-channel report was received by the HQ USAF and down-channeled as an alert message to other USAF bases in Europe. So you know, it's funny. It's wonderful what these lighthouses can do. You know.
Yeah, kind of blows you right out of water, doesn't it?
The
lighthouse.
And that's really because I questioned before, how far did my up channel helping hand actually go? Well, it went all the way to JCS at the Pentagon, because that's the only people that can issue those type of orders down channel. And in the comm center that Mark worked at is one of the, it was probably classified at the time. It's not now.
Yeah,
we dismantled our forces over there pretty much. But it was a common point where that is a common nodal point where they would go ahead and then selectively, give out alerting orders to other comm centers at different bases and everything else. And what I found unique, because I've sat down and actually had the opportunity to talk to Mark about it a couple of years ago. And what I thought was interesting is they only had select bases go on DEFCON changes, which I thought was really odd, because normally a DEFCON change would actually be Air Force wide. But the other thing that Gary is saying, it also showed that there's a lot of peripheral stuff that was going on at the exact time, because of the up channel report. So this does not involve just England. This involves Europe, and then it involves the United States. I mean, we're on different continents now. I mean, it's all over the place. Where the impact of this was going on. So with these types of thoughts and these types of facts that have been presented, you hear some idiot, and they're idiots, say it was a lighthouse for the last 42 years. You know, they can't really sing that song and dance anymore, but you know what? They have to because they've been doing it for 42 years. So when you hear that happen, you go, well, those people that are just blowing smoke up people's butts, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. That's what it's all for. Yeah.
Oh, I said, what are they trying? You know, what's the purpose behind that? What is the purpose behind that?
How could a lighthouse lead to DEFCON 2? You know,
it can't.
I mean, the thing is also, I've always said that there'd have been a lot more UFO reports as well, wouldn't there, over the years? Than I know there were a few before, you know, other than the RFI, but so there would have been a lot more, wouldn't there, over the years?
Yeah, but this just goes to show that what Jim had encountered in the forest had led to that. You know, had led to that.
Absolutely.
Emergency.
Yeah, you know, and the other thing, mind you, that Mark Cartier, he has, you know, he had a top secret clearance at the time. He wasn't just some airman that was doing doughboy duties. I mean, this guy here, they invested a lot of money in this.
Yeah, I didn't really go into what he was actually involved doing.
Yeah, his service record after that is just like stellar stuff, man. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
The other thing go ahead, Gary.
No, because I'm going to be diverting onto something completely different. But go on, you just end what you're going to say.
No, it's just that when you have credible people actually come up, you know, versus people that are, I don't know, are you know, just making stuff up. I mean, because we've had a lot of that.
They've got an agenda to, you know, convince the public that this didn't happen. You know, the way, you know.
Well, you know, it's, you know, what I like is that ever since the book has come out, The Rendlesham Enigma, witnesses have come forward. I mean, real witnesses, credible, like Mark, and you know, we verified it. We went, you know, did all the verification process with him. I mean, everything he says is accurate, and by putting that book out, we have had, you know, nothing but more support and more statements to go ahead and say that the Rendlesham Enigma, that's what happened. You know, what's in there.
That's true.
Versus, no, we're debunking it and we're taking pieces away from it, like these people think they can do. They can't. They cannot debunk the incident itself and what happened out there. It is historical fact, whether it's classified or not, or sitting in the Pentagon or whatever. And that's another interesting fact is, you know, my original statement, 4-page statement, I had that confirmed by Colonel Highbush when he replaced Major Zickler. He called me right down in the office.
I wanted to talk about that. No, okay. But one point I want to make here is that the people that are trying to debunk the RFI, the pseudo-skeptics, because they're not really balanced, you know, fair-minded skeptics, healthy-minded skeptics. They are pseudo-skeptics because they're already biased, and you know, so they're this kind of materialist view, and they will say that because they talk about a lighthouse theory all the time, but they won't read it. But they won't read our book, right, where we've got all the explanations that they keep for the things that they keep bringing up, and they'll continue to do so. And they refuse to read our book because they perhaps have heard that it has all the answers in there, and they don't want to look at that. Their agenda is to change the public opinion to what they believe. You know, so I don't know if I've stated that properly, but. Well, I was going to say, you know, when they keep coming up with this, you didn't get any further than 50 meters. Yeah. So you know about that, David, didn't you?
Yeah.
They keep bringing this up, and they brought it up today. There was something on the internet on the ATS site, you know, where Jim didn't get any further than 50 meters. Well, Jim went into the OSI building on the 29th of December. Because he was ordered to go there, you know, and be there at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then when he got in there, the agents said to him, "We want you to write out a statement of what happened, what you experienced." And Jim sat down. They gave him a legal pad, a yellow legal pad, and a pencil. And they said, we want you to write your statement. So Jim wrote down everything. He didn't write about the binary, kept the binary out of it because he didn't
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, he didn't talk about the binary, but he did he wrote out a 4-page statement where he mentioned getting close to the craft and touching it. And you signed it, and you initialed each page, you dated it.
Mm-hmm.
And that then they took that 4-page statement away from Jim, and they went away for 20 minutes or so. And then they came back with a typed up half-page text, this statement that they said to Jim, you've got to memorize this, read it, memorize it. And this is what you're going to be telling people from now on if they ever ask you about your role in the incident. And that means even the officers, you know, at Bentwaters, you're going to tell them this what you read in this statement. And in the statement, it says that Jim didn't get any further than 50 meters. But you see, that was taken from Jim's statement where he actually said at one point they got about 50 meters away and they saw this bright light. Then he went further and said that he got right up to the craft and touched it. But they took that 50 meters statement that Jim made and then said that's how far he got.
Just edited it out, yeah.
Yeah. Now, Jim's 4-page statement was taken away, and that's when Jim was saying that Colonel Eyebush was at the Pentagon.
Right, the OSI statement that they did, that cover statement, that there wasn't signed, or it's the only statement that's not signed, isn't that?
Yeah. So what it is, it's a bogus statement that's been wrongly attributed to you, but it's not even got your name on it. It's got no date or anything like that. No. And your 4-page statement ended up in the Pentagon because that's where Colonel Eyebush had seen it and read it.
Yeah, he told me that, and that was what our meeting was. He was only in a squadron commander for a day or two, and he called me up there, and so he wanted to talk about about the Bentwater situation, and he said I read the statement at the Pentagon, and so that was my confirmation that the statement I wrote it down at the OSI building actually made it to the Pentagon. So I was like, okay, so they actually know what happened out there, you know.
He was the top security cop in the USAF.
Yeah, that was one of the things. That's another thing. Why would a full colonel replace a major? That don't make sense, does it? No.
Yeah, but why would someone like that with that status say to you, Jim? You know, I've got your back, and if you've got any problems while in the USAF, you come to me.
Which is it's all in the book, and. He said that to me. He said, if you have any more issues with it, whether it's medical or whatever, come to me. You know? And he continued to do that throughout my rest of my Air Force career, no matter what base I was at. And he later became, of course, Chief of Security Police for United States Air Force Europe out of Ramstein. And which was a bit odd. I described that in the book when you have him like come and see you. That's a little bit. It's like, why is that? Why is the top cop in the Europe coming to see you, Jim? What's the deal?
Yeah,
and I can't talk about it.
But then you've got, but you see, with that, then you've got Gary Eseltine with his book trying to elevate Larry Warren. People like Larry Warren, and who else is it? Kind of Michael Stacy Smith or whatever. These people and Longero above Jim, that they're more credible than Jim is, But look, what I want to say is everything that we've been talking about here is in our book. But the skeptics and pseudo skeptics, they won't read it. So they're none the wiser about these explanations that we give, and
but you know what? But
they keep bringing up the same old stuff.
Gary, I don't care about those idiots. I don't. I tell you what, I have the most confidence that anybody can have in the public. I think the reader reads that book, the ones that have anyway, and some are on their third and fourth and fifth reading. They love it. They're always finding something they missed before. They have been very receptive and very supportive of it, and I think I had the confidence in the public to go ahead and be make the right decisions and understand what really happened.
Well, that's the reason why Yeah, that's true. Mark Cartier himself read the book because we couldn't include his testimony or his statement because he got in touch with you in September, a few months after, well, some months
Right.
after the book was published. But he must have read the book to get in touch with you, and he said, and he gave this statement, didn't he? And we haven't included that in the book, obviously, because it came after. And that's the reason why I read it out now, because a lot of people are aware of that. Yeah. So, but they don't read our book, as I said. The skeptics don't read our book, so they're not aware of all these explanations.
Well, just a little bit about Heseltine. I mean, he don't know. He's clueless. Okay, he really is. One is, just take for example, he thinks the RAF, an RAF police or security is the same as the United States Air Force security.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
No, they are not. I mean, I think I heard him say about they're using patrol dogs around the WSA, we don't do that. That's something the RAF does. We have what we call electronic stuff, We have fence sensors and made mile system and all these electronics. Even back then, that's what we had. So it's not the same. I would say more or less nothing against RAF security, but they're more guards than anything else. And it's just different. There's just I just don't want to go into it. Okay, I better just leave it like that.
Yeah, I think you ought to mention, Jim, also that Gary Heseltine's book, he's never spoken to you at all, has he? He's never interviewed you, and yet he's written 65 pages about you.
Yeah,
amazing.
I've known Jim.
That's incredible. Huh.
I've known Jim 12 years now. We've had loads of discussions, and I've questioned Jim. I've cross-examined him analytically. I look at everything analytically. I need the facts. They've got to be rational, logical, and Jim does explain things. I mean, there are things that you say, Jim, that you don't actually get a clear kind of picture of what you're saying. But when I ask you, Jim, can you clarify this? And you do. You see, that's what these skeptics haven't done. They haven't got those explanations from you on the things that they pick up, which they don't understand or they've misread or misheard.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple process.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, that's another interesting. Out of all the people that are experts on it and people I've been around, and I can count on my right hand probably the people that actually ask me a question.
Yeah.
And during an interview. I mean, the rest of them, I don't know where they get their information from. I guess from watching documentaries that have their agenda is to make money, which for the film company, I guess they'll, and they have selected editing and they edit them to make the most sensational stuff come out. I mean, maybe that's what they use, or maybe if it's something go ahead.
I'm just saying the main criticism they have is, the main thing that they keep coming up with is Jim's book didn't come out until 20 years after the incident, and
I wasn't ready for it, man.
Yeah,
that there.
No, I'm talking about the note.
I thought they were saying about the Reynolds Shenanigans. I mean, that took a long time to get myself up to the part where I could talk about everything. The notebook.
The notebook. Yeah, they say it didn't appear until 20 years later.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason. That was what am I going to do? Go ahead and go public and say this is what the stuff I wrote down.
Yeah,
that when I lost my mind here because of the trauma. Right. I'm going to talk about that anyway. The notebook. I don't understand. About 20 years later, that's not correct.
No, because I want to go on and say that you retired on October. I think it was the 31st, wasn't it? Not October 30th. I said October 30th in the last interview we did, but it's October the 31st in 1993. Yeah. That's when you retired, right?
Yes.
And then 18 days after that, you did a conference where you actually took the notebook along and you were showing people because it's in your what you
Pilots
on the
Pilots Association.
Yeah, but on your notes of what you were going to say that day.
My talking paper. Yeah, I never throw anything away. That was my talking paper.
Yeah, and not only that, and then December 93 was when you was interviewed by Sally Rao, okay? And you were talking about the notebook then. And not only were you talking about the notebook, but you talked about touching the symbol on the craft. And although you didn't go into the thing about the ones and zeros, because as I said, you was embarrassed by that. There's a lot of things, look, David, there's a lot of things that Jim is still embarrassed about the incident, you know, things he's related even to the dreams, but dreams are subjective anyway. But you've had a lot of dreams as that. There's a lot of information that's come out in your dreams. But you won't go into that because it's all subjective. Your hypnosis, okay, what came out under hypnosis you didn't want to know about. You didn't really want to see the film that was taken of your hypnosis session. And so you didn't know a lot about what came out under hypnosis. So I had to transcribe it, and then I told you what you had said.
Yeah, and that was just done. That was just done like what, 2019 or 2018? Yeah. I don't know, it's recent. I couldn't. Every time I attempted to listen to it, because Gary wanted me to listen to it for writing this Reynolds from Enigma book, I just couldn't do it. I mean, it was just too hard, just too emotionally, just too hard. And Gary devised about doing, the transcript. And I said, oh, that's going to take you forever. I don't know. It took him a long time, but I don't know how many Skype hours. That's when you were in UK at the time. So I don't know how many Skype hours it was you reading to me. What was it?
But what I was going to say is that during your hypnosis session, you mentioned the notebook. That was in 94 when you had the hypnosis session. So when they say that the notebook didn't come out until 20 years later, and Jim must have written a notebook out, all the things in the notebook, later on, and kind of hoaxed the whole thing. It's just nah.
And then the other thing, in 2019, I was at the 50th symposium for MUFON in Irvine, California. And I meet Robert Wood, who is authenticator of documents. We had him look at the notebook in 2013 or something like that.
No, it was 2012, and August 2012. Well, actually July, but you was sent Ali Dubrow, who was the producer or assistant something on the show. Yeah, she sent you what he'd said, what he said about it.
That's right. So he had looked at it and done the authentication on it. But anyway, in 2019, I got to go in detail with them on the authentication. He went into about the ink. He went into the paper. He went into all the stuff that. The age of deterioration. He said, there's no doubt. He said it was done in the winter of 1980. I mean,
right.
So I got the re-authentication. I says, okay, that's interesting. I mean, I know when I wrote it. So.
And you was talking face to face with him at a conference.
I was face to face with him. Oh yeah, we were at a conference. We were on a couple of panels together, and so we had a lot of time to do that. I really appreciate Robert. He's well respected in as far as document authentication and that. And so that's that's for people that need confirmation. That's definitely confirmation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So one of the people that keep bringing this issue up about a notebook not having, been made public until 20 years later is John Burroughs, right? And he says he never saw you write anything in the notebook walking around.
He didn't see a lot. He didn't see much at all, did he?
But he never kept a notebook himself anyway. I mean, you did because you had people who were working with you, under you.
Yeah. All my guys had notebooks, every one of them. Yeah. Because I gave them to them. They all had notebooks. I wanted them to record whatever happened out there, and whether they were working accurately. There was no guessing, stuff like that. Yeah. That's why.
Yeah. And David, right? The OSI agents who got Jim to do the statement, but on the day after, wasn't it? They interrogated you. It was on December the 30th. They interrogated you. And they put you under hypnosis. They gave you sodium pentothal, put you under hypnosis.
I don't think that was hypnosis. It was sodium pentothal.
Yeah, and they put a block, didn't they? They put a block on your memory about the binary.
Well, that was discovered by the doctor in 1994.
Who did your hypnosis? Yeah, it all came out then.
Well, yeah, but the hypnosis was for sleep disorder, not for
no, it wasn't anything to do with UFOs. No, they didn't. It all came out under hypnosis, though. But it all came out under hypnosis that they put a block on your memory about the binary code part of your experience, of your encounter with a craft. And it was what they did was they used a nursery rhyme. Mary had a little lamb, and every time you try to remember that part of the incident, you'd hear someone reciting that nursery rhyme, I should say.
It was a crime, wasn't it? You're right the first time.
I'm thinking of the Genesis album, Nursery Crime. But anyway, which I was writing about at some time. But anyway, they put the block on his memory, and the hypnotist found that block and removed it, and then Jim was able to remember it properly. But what they didn't reckon on, people who put the block on Jim's memory, is that they already written down the ones and zeros in his notebook, and they didn't know about the notebook. But later, when they did find out about the notebook, they tried to take it, didn't they, Jim? They tried different ways to try and get your notebook.
They did, but unsuccessful for 42 years.
Yeah. So if Jim had come forward with the notebook while he was still in the USAF, which he couldn't have done because the OSI told him, you're just to tell this what we give you in this statement. All the time he was in the USAF, he couldn't say anything about it. But if he had done, the notebook would have been confiscated. He wouldn't have seen it again.
Yeah, that would have been a fact. I mean, in OSI didn't tell me this. It's at the OSI building. I had agents down there for whom they worked with. I'm not 100% certain. Okay, yeah. I knew they weren't the OSI from the base. Okay, because I knew them. So
let's get this straight. Okay, what we want to say is, when they say the notebook didn't come out until 20 years later, no, the notebook came out just days after you retired. You was showing the notebook at a conference, and you was talking about the notebook in the Sally Rowing.
That was with the Pilots Association up there, and anybody that attended that can tell you that.
So what I want to say is, you mentioned the notebook as soon as you retired, when you could talk about it, and they keep saying that it didn't come out till later, and Jim must have hoaxed the notebook.
Hey, I blame also the strange but true. They should have just said the hell with those storyboards and just went and did the show. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty simple. As far as I tell you, the state of mind of Burroughs was not good that night. I mean, he was interrupting me and Steffens. I mean, he doesn't remember stuff. The stuff he's telling, even about the second night, this is what he's told me, even about when he went out there, when Monroe Nevels and Holt were out there. Everything he is talking about is from one of his hypnosis sessions from UFO people doing hypnosis. That's all he's telling is what's going to happen under hypnosis, not what he experienced, even on the second night. I mean, I'm like, what is that about? So, and it's so stupid. I've always told him, I said, well, all you got to do is remember. I said, why don't you go to the doctor or something like I did?
At the end of the day, Jim, all the things that they are bringing up to try and discredit you, and it's always you they try to discredit, isn't it? They all get a kind of free pass, but it's always you they kind of down on all the time. Or they either do that or they ignore you and they don't talk about you. They try to paint you out of picture.
I don't care if they want to paint me out of picture.
But at the end of the day, all the things they've brought up, and I've listed them all. I've written it all out, where you've given the explanations for each one, and where I found that there's explanations for each one. I've written it all out. Even though a lot of it is in our book, I'm still going to be doing a publication as a side, kind of like an accompanying book, showing how all the things that they bring up can be explained away.
Well, that should be a large book. That should be a large book.
No, not really. It's not a really large book. It won't be a large book, but
okay, good.
Pages. But what I'm saying is that I've taken it all on board, and I've given the explanations for each one, where they have to stop doing that. They just haven't read our book, and that's the reason why they keep on with it. There was something else.
So there's no way that Jim could be written out of the story anyway. I think you're actually the main character, really. Even more so than Colonel Holt. Well, no, you are.
No, Gary, let's go back. Or Gary, David, let's go back. Let's go back. David, let's go back. What we said earlier. Rendlesham Forest is not about any individual. It's about the code. That's all it's about. Okay. So
that's what we found out. That's what.
No, I agree with you there, but
these camps of people supporting different witnesses. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Can I just add this? You said what comes up, the way the code authenticates itself mathematically, the facts about that alone makes all the he said, she said stuff and all the things they keep bringing up and all what's put in Ezel Tynes' new book is all irrelevant. It's all irrelevant. That fact alone, that the code has authenticated itself with something that no one could have known, no one could have predicted, is itself alone. It makes everything else irrelevant.
Hey,
and
Gary,
not only
Gary, you're so hard on him. All he's trying to do is have something to hand out or sell at a conference. That's what he's trying to do.
I'd like to talk to these people. John Burroughs, I'm not going to be down on him so much now. I mean, the last couple of interviews he did, he didn't mention these things anymore. He didn't mention.
He can't help it. You know that.
No, what I mean is he didn't mention all the issues that he kept bringing up about you. He hasn't done that in the last two interviews. So I'm thinking, okay, well, let's move forward now. It's like I want to move forward. You want to move forward.
Well, yeah, you don't want me to bring up issues that. In situations I know that he doesn't want public, about him. I mean, I won't do that. Okay, no, I won't do that.
But what I was going to say is that we should move forward now. They can't keep bringing up all these issues. It's what divides everybody. What it is, they're all trying to control the narrative themselves. They want to be the go-to guy who knows about has got the answers to the Rendlesham incident. And the thing is that we are not trying to control the narrative. The code is what is important here, and that's what levels everything. What the findings of the code, everything else is irrelevant to that.
Yeah, it's just like Gary and I. We said this numerous times. The reason we wanted the Rendlesham Enigma book out is to have the true account of Rendlesham out, the definitive book, and then hopefully. With other people writing books, it would inspire other people to write books about it. The research they're doing and stuff like that with the Rendlesham incident, and and we're hoping the same with Gary's book. I mean, Gary is only going to be on this planet for so long. He can only write so many books, and someone's going to have to do the research because, like you said earlier, you've only concentrated on one main site. In this tertiary and two others, 3, but each of those sites needs that full investigation, like each they do, like you did with Giza, and Giza's not done. I mean, I know there's more stuff coming there. It seems like what you said earlier when you find out, and this was our wow factor when you first told me. I'll go back to that when you first told me about the CodeNet, and authentication is, I would go, wow, oh man, that's amazing, But then that one wow thing would build. If it wasn't for that one wow thing, the next second wow would.
All things follow from it. Yeah. All the implications of it.
And we're talking, I don't know, somewhere around 50 wows. I stopped doing the wow. It's just like wow,
and you think, but this whole thing, David. See, people aren't understanding the way the code authenticates itself yet because they don't really know about the fine structure constant. I mean, I didn't know until Robert Bovell, kind of discussed it with me, and I kind of got into it. But I mean, it's a wall up for a lot of people. They can't get their head around it at the moment. A lot of people that I've talked to are not mathematicians, so they just ignore it. And it's like, but
it's very easy to just say, "Oh, I can't get my head around it. I'll ignore that." I mean, I'm no good at. I was never really good at mathematics, but I've read it a few times, and you can gradually get to understand what you're talking about.
Right. Oh, I hated mathematics in school, but I find it's beautiful. The math is beautiful when you really go into it, or especially what the code tells us. Actually, the code is telling us that everything is mathematical. Whoever devised the code is saying that everything in reality is mathematical. That a circle, you take a circle, I mean, the diameter of the circle, multiplied by 3.141 pi, is going to be the circumference. Yeah. So, and that goes on everywhere in the universe. It's going to be real in every part of the universe. So everything is mathematical. Yeah. And that's what the code is telling us, that actually reality is mathematical, and even what we call God is mathematical. Thought is mathematical. Emotions are mathematical. You can put a number, the parameters. It's all waves. It's all about waves, and sine waves and cosine waves, and that's what reality is composed of. It's all mathematical. Everything is number. So that's what the code is actually kind of telling us, really. I've been working along with Jimmy Blanchett. Have you heard of Jimmy Blanchett?
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's been getting these kind of transmissions, he says, of data from space. I know it sounds crazy, but he's like a new kind of Tesla guy with all his the inventions he's got, things and contraptions he's got, and what he's getting is he's getting messages that are all mathematical again. And he's actually been working alongside me, looking at the code, and he's come up with things himself. So it's all mathematically derived, all this information. And I hopefully might be making a video with him, so we can kind of present what we both found, what I found in the code with what he's found.
Interesting.
So I'm just saying that the code is what defines the Rendlesham incident. In a way, it authenticates itself. It authenticates the incident, and it authenticates the UFO phenomenon in general.
Well, I guess the question on a lot of people's minds, you said about another book coming out, Gary. When's that going to appear, do you think?
I'm working on 2 books at the moment. And the reason why I did that was because there's like cross-referencing stuff. And I thought it's best to get both these books out together this year. And it has been a long time, Jim, I know. But I mean, even the first book took about almost 5 years to do. So, and what's emerged from the code is complex stuff, but all I can do is get it out there so that people can see for themselves. People might complain, I can't read this, it's all mathematical. But, it might not be for them. It might be for the people that would understand it. And that's where it might all take off, in actually establishing something that's factual, that shows that we were contacted, and through Jim, with his encounter. So these 2 books I'm working on at the moment, trying to get them out this year. And I want to get them out this year. I think 2023 is a good year to do it.
Is there? I hate to ask the question, but any plans of coming to the UK anytime, Jim and Gary?
I don't know. Heather and I haven't really discussed any kind of travel at all, really.
They got to straighten all this stuff that's going on in the world with airlines and all these restrictions and
Well, I don't think we've got any restrictions over here now.
It's just chaotic now, isn't it? The world is just chaotic now. There's so much.
The other thing is, there's they don't know it yet, but the threat is high. There's a high threat, right? It's materializing because of the world situation and stuff like that. And
it
is a worrying situation, actually.
Just puts you off traveling, doesn't it? Puts you off traveling.
It puts you off. Yeah, you're right. I mean, because I tell you what, I was gonna go last year to Giza. I had the university at Technical University of Warsaw, Poland.
Right.
Was going to do all that, and then they had that thing with Russia, and of course, they're all the college professors that were on that team are doing translating work and everything else now, and that went by its way, and so there were things I might go. I don't know if I go over. Let's put it this way: if I go over to the UK, I'm going to go over there as Jim Penniston, just as a vacation. If I do it, okay, it's. I guess I got a few friends over there I'd like to see again. So
Well, I hope you'll come and meet David.
I'm not going to rule it out, David.
Young.
Yeah, I'm not going to rule it out, David. I'm not going to rule it out.
No, I'm not going to rule it out either.
To be honest, I think we've got to wait and see how this year goes, and then maybe start thinking about 2024, maybe, because it'd be great to fix up a conference for you. And,
I mean, I want to go back to the UK. I mean, my mother's there, for Christ's sake.
So you've mentioned before.
Yeah, she's getting on in years, and it's like I need to go back there at some point, but I haven't had any plans to do so in the coming months. I don't know. I don't know.
No, I think we're all up in the air a little bit over what's going on, and I know exactly where you're coming from. So as I say, I think we need to get 2023 out of the way again now. So, if we're all still here by the end of the year.
I'm thinking that this code, it needs to be understood, and I don't think anything's going to happen, hopefully, until it's understood, because I think there is a timing in this code. That I think certain things about it have come out just at the right time, and I'm sure that we'll get these 2 books out that show all the findings and that people can understand.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it. Anyway.
Maybe it might lead to something, but yeah. What Jim says, it's not all about us. It's not about Jim. It's not about me. It's not about any of the other witnesses, really. It's about what the code is giving us.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, I hope this show has gone a little bit more towards people understanding about the Rendlesham Code and Rendlesham Enigma book that you had out. Which came out, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago now, isn't it? So the Rendlesham Enigma.
2019, yeah.
No, so 4 years ago.
Well, it will be in June. June, July.
Yeah. Right.
For people watching on video, it's that one.
Great.
I'll tell you what, that's
your iPad first.
That cover always.
What was that?
I don't know. You got a TV on, Jim, at all?
No.
I don't know where that came from. Anyway,
what was it? I didn't hear it properly.
I don't know if it came out of my lap. I think it came out of my iPad that's down the side of you. Well,
wow.
Nothing to do with that, was it? When I held that up. Anyway, I'll chop that bit out.
that cover always impresses me because it's so colourful.
It's fantastic. Yeah, that's why I made a nice banner out of using that for the show, using that cover. But it's great. It's brilliant. It's probably one of the best covers for. I'd call it a UFO book, best UFO book of all time.
Yeah,
really.
The guy.
If you don't mind me calling it a UFO book.
Yeah. The guy who did the cover, Italian guy, who was the editor of one of the magazines over there, Hera magazine. That's right. I knew him from some time ago, but it was Paolo Harris, wasn't it, Jim, who got hold of the eyes?
Paolo, yeah, right.
For the cover of the book, yeah.
Yeah, I met her a few years back. That's right.
That's good.
Anyway, right. It's been fantastic having you both on. Anyway, thank you so much for finding the time. I've been looking forward to this, as you know, trying to get you both together, and finally done it. Great.
Thank you.
I hope this goes well. I mean, when are you going to be uploading it? Do you know?
You've got the date on the thing, haven't you? Hang on a minute. I'll have to chop this bit out.
You can cut this bit out if you like.
It goes out as a special on March the 9th.
That's good. All right. I just wanted to know. Yeah.
That's pretty close to the Ides of March, isn't it?
Yeah, the Ides of March, yeah. It's springtime, Jim.
Yeah, and you know what?
And
daylight savings time is gonna, I think, what is that, the 15th or the 14th of March, or get 12th or whatever, to get rid of that.
Yeah.
It always makes you feel better if you get a little extra time on the clock,
Yeah, I always like to get February out of the way. It's nice because I'll start thinking about spring then in March when the sun's shining. Mind you, it's been nice over here anyway. It's been like spring day today anyway.
Right. Wow. So have we covered most of what you wanted to?
I think so. I mean, Yeah. I mean, unless Jim's got any other little comments he'd like to make.
No, David, if you got any questions that, we can do one of these in the future. You can just shoot us a question.
Yeah, sure.
I don't, if it's for me or it's for Gary, neither one of us have any problem.
The thing is, if anyone's listening to this show and they've got any questions they would like Jim or Gary to answer, I mean, you can either send directly to me or you can, or Jim will take it straight away. But it's probably best to come to me and I'll pass it on to Gary or Jim. And if anything has come up during this, but I think you've covered most of the stuff.
Jim and I just had the intention of just coming on and just allowing it to flow. I mean, apart from Mark Cartier testimony.
Well, I would advise anyone really, if you really want to know the whole story about all this, the Jim's story especially, is to read the Rendlesham Enigma by Jim Penniston and Gary Osborn, because I mean, I can honestly say I think it's the best book on the market about the RFI that I've ever read. Anyway,
thank you very much.
It's
got good reviews.
Hey, David, how do you keep that cover in such a good shape?
I don't know. I'll just keep it on the shelf.
My first.
That is my second one, by the way, Jim.
Oh, is it?
My first one I gave to Colonel Holt, if you remember, when he was over, and he was going through it. He spent all day going through it, and I said, "Oh, you might as well keep that one."
He didn't really like a lot of the stuff that's put in there about him. But
I mean, I've said to you before, I didn't actually see I didn't see anything really derogatory in it about. You've just pointed things out that didn't sort of match other things, that's been said in the past. Really,
and I'm sure that if we had a real good kind of conversation with him, which we just got through emails. We just had email conversation with him, didn't we, Jim? If we had a real good conversation with him, we had to kind of iron out some of the discrepancies and things that we found. So.
Hey, witnesses aren't 100% accurate, like the same. I mean, but I'll tell you what, the testimony with Monroe Nevels and him, 95% of it's the same. There's like this 5% that wasn't really out there. I mean, it was treachery, stuff that happened. He had a problem.
I mean, to be honest, I found it a little bit unimportant as to who was actually sent out. Who was told to go out, and I mean, the fact of the matter is, they were out there. Who was asked to go first?
Unless you have an ego, I guess the only egos sort of hurt people. I would think.
Yeah.
I don't mean eagle; it's ego.
Ego. Not
see, the critics would, or the skeptics would say, Jim mentioned eagle. What was he talking about? What was he saying? He meant ego.
Sometimes a flappy thing.
It's how Jim says things that they kind of, because there was this thing about him about the craft being silver. There was something came up that Jim said the craft was silver, but he said it was it? I think you used another word, wasn't it, Jim?
Opaque, wasn't it? Opaque?
Silhouetted. You said it was silhouetted.
Oh, silhouetted.
And they thought he said silver, so they brought that up.
Oh, yeah.
So there's just these silly things.
Hey, American English and the Queen's English, it's different. I guess the King's English.
The King's, it's the King's English.
Yeah, they're not identical. I mean, they're close, but not identical.
I mean, the King, he calls it a house, a house. So you can't. Anyway. Let's forget that.
No, it's okay. Let's do this again then, because there's a few things that I wanted to talk about and we didn't get round to it, but
Well, I'll tell you what. How about when you get your other book out, we try and do it again, maybe
we'll
later
do
in the year. How about
that'd
that?
be good. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
I think if you're up for it, Jim, as well, be great.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
All right,
well, I suppose we better wrap it up, and we've had a good almost 2 hours there, so I think it should be good. I'm looking forward to the show going out, and I think it'll be good. So there you go.
Thanks, David.
It's been fantastic having you on, as I said, and thank you, Jim and Gary, for finding the time.
Thank you.
I'll speak to you again soon, and take care of yourselves.
And you, David. Thanks.
Right. Cheers, Jim. Cheers, Gary. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.